Hey everyone. Okay, so yesterday I posted something in my Facebook group, Building Better Brains, about if your child starts their letters from the bottom and works their way to the top, as opposed to starting from the top and going to the bottom, which can seem like whatever. Everyone writes in their own way. And I noticed a lot of people chimed in and said, yes, my child does this. What does this mean? And so forth. So this is very much connected to what I was asking yesterday in the Facebook group. It's going to answer some of your questions and even further answer your questions in connection to other layers of what this could be affecting in terms of academics, behavior, all of that type of stuff. So a lot of our kids we know are smart. I truly believe every child has his own genius, at least one, if not several, and that we just need to access that. Sometimes they have a hard time letting that zone of genius shine because there are certain blocks that are preventing the skills that they need in order to let those zones of genius shine. So if you find yourself running in circles and so forth, trying to find out how do I help my child with this area, with their behavior, even though they're super smart, they're struggling with maybe they're the bully, maybe they have a hard time focusing, maybe they're the class clown, maybe they have insane, anxiety, whether it's social anxiety or general anxiety, maybe there's OCD tendencies or sensory processing. It's important to keep in mind this is really not uncommon for smart kids to have these issues. They might have issues with fine and gross motor skills, poor focus, all that executive functioning stuff that I've been talking about for the past month, such as organization and planning, as well as, self-regulation, impulsivity, and all those types of things, including emotional awareness and, just skills related to social interaction and so on. So it can be absolutely exhausting when you feel like you're trying to find out about this and going to the specialist and reading that book and trying the strategy for all of these apparently separate problems, as I often talk about. And as you know, I know a lot of parents tell me this, and even kids confide this to me, that they feel like they are mom's project, right? And mom's always trying a new thing. And it can leave them kind of feeling like they're always a work in progress and they're broken. And this is where a lot of kids will actually end up having that resistance where parents are like, we're trying to do this new thing and they're giving me a hard time. And it's because they feel like they're not accepted for who they are. And I'm going to get into that more another time. So if you're, that parent, you're not trying to make them the work in progress, but you worry as a parent, right, about how they're going to fare out with their friendships, their relationships, their mental health, just staying out of trouble. I, sadly talk to a lot of parents who have 7 or 8-year-olds who, are explosive, are always getting suspended, kids even who are expelled from, regular public schools. And they say, I'm worried my kid's going to end up in prison or really hurt someone. And so and even if it's not even that far, I just know, like a lot of parents say, I just don't want life to be that hard for my child. Life is hard, but it doesn't need to be that hard. So we know that meds, tutoring, IEPs, all that type of stuff helps, but it only goes so far and ultimately only manages the problem, does not help to actually overcome the problem and so forth. And so one of the biggest problems I see is that we're trying to explicitly teach to the problem. Okay, so we're trying to explicitly teach to the problem. And when we explicitly try to teach the problem, it's things like, you need to start your D from the top and go to the bottom. You need to start doing this. And while I want to, make clear that that's not necessarily a horrible thing to do, it's not really addressing the root cause of why that's happening. So that's a symptom of what's going on a neurological level. So what's going on a neurological level is poor top to bottom processing. So the top and bottom parts of the brain are not well connected. Doesn't mean they're not connected at all, but it means they're not well connected. And so this is going to cause all kinds of issues that I've mentioned, from gross and fine motor skills to emotional, social development, possibly with academics as well, sensory processing, focus, attention, all of that type of stuff. So if your child has disconnections between the top and bottom parts of their brain, there are some pretty clear signs that I'm going to point out to help you understand if that is a factor. And then I'm going to talk about what we can do about that. So number one is, does your child, and let me know whether you're watching the comments of the replay, have issues with poor coordination or balance? So particularly poor coordination with these kids, a lot of the times their hands and their feet don't work in sync. So depending on the severity, it could be that they're the kid who can't do sports very well because they're just always tripping, they're clumsy and so forth. Or it could be more mild, right? Where it's just in certain situations and so forth. It could be that they can do sports if it's not too complex, but then if you ask them to do a karate class or dance class, that's a whole other story. Number two is poor hand-eye coordination. And we see this a lot with kids who have reading, writing, or even self-expression issues. So when there's poor hand-eye coordination, these are the kids that are going to have problems tracking words on a page, with their visual processing, as well as with their writing. So some parents yesterday chimed in and said, my child does write bottom up, but they also have these other issues with their writing, whether it's reading or writing, certain letters backwards and so forth. Third thing is, as I mentioned yesterday, that was just to kind of get you talking and thinking about this, is the writing. Do they start their letters from the bottom and work their way up? If they do, that means they have poor top to bottom processing, and that they are likely working from the bottom up when their brain should actually be working top down. And so what your child needs when this is the case is they need to improve neuroplasticity in the brain. And so when they start doing neurodevelopmental exercises that are targeted, it's going to make them feel calmer, less agitated, more focused, and it will improve all kinds of other things. Is it the cure-all? No, you'll never hear me say, do this one exercise or do these 3 exercises and your kid's going to be like, thriving. It's definitely more complex than just that. And it's all about right action at the right time. But there's definitely certain things you can do to start addressing it and so forth. And so I also want to speak to another piece that I see a lot when people are like, okay, more exercise. That's key. Yes, more exercise is key. All of our kids need more exercise, getting outside even better, and so forth. But the secret with kids, especially who have anxiety, ADHD, ODD, any of these, difficulties that are related to high energy and so forth, is not emptying the gas tank with lots and lots of exercise and basically that they're exhausted. They need the right type of exercises. They need targeted exercises that are going to stimulate the areas of the brain that are weak, that are causing the areas of breakdown. And so that's where you, for example, if your child has poor top to bottom processing, then they need top to bottom exercises that are going to help better connect those parts of the brain. So I am going to be adding in the next few days 3 exercises. If you want to check them out, I'm going to be also adding them to my Instagram and TikTok account. So I'm going to be adding 3 exercises that you can do to help your child improve top to bottom processing. Now, that being said, keep in mind, if your child does have these issues, whether it's an official diagnosis with ADHD or, ODD or just learning, whatever the case may be, keep in mind, usually it's not just poor top to bottom processing. That's a piece of the puzzle. And so that's where it all boils down to, I don't want to say just poor brain organization, because if you've been following me for a while, you know that nutrition and gut healing and detoxification, all that stuff plays a role as well. But it definitely boils down to poor brain organization. And it's usually not just poor top to bottom processing if a child is having a, real difficulty with all of this. So let me know in the comments below, do you suspect, based on what I've talked about in terms of the signs of poor top to bottom processing, does your child have these issues? What are you seeing at home? What does that look like? Are they academically gifted, but they're struggling with behavior? Is it all of the above that they're struggling with? And what have you done so far to try to address this and manage this and so on? So if you want to learn more about the exercises I do suggest grab my Laser Focus Learner Starter Kit. I will put the link for that in the comments below. And then if you want to learn more about my 6-month program, the Full Potential Formula, we have a really fun promo going on for the next few weeks. Do reach out, book a clarity call, and you can learn more about that. So thanks for watching, everyone, and have a fantastic day. Bye.